The following segment is sponsored by Daniel A. White and Associates.
It does not necessarily reflect the views of WDEL or Forever Media.
News and issues that affect the first state. Stay tuned for Del Aware PM edition, starting at 6. Now, back to the Rick Jensen Show on WDEL.
Well, the views and opinions expressed during this segment should be everybody's opinion. I'm a happy camper client of Dan White and Associates. All a great collection of professionals. Most of them specializing in retirement income. Others have different specialties. On the phone right now out of the Middletown, Delaware office is Andrew Wood. Great guy, smart as all get out. And also fun because he understands my odd sense of humor. Hello, Andrew.
Hey, Rick. How's it going today?
I'm doing okay. So what's on the docket?
So I'm sure a lot of your listeners just saw a piece of legislation that was passed over the last couple days here called the Social Security Fairness Act.
Yeah, I did talk about that last week. Schumer was pushing this. It's bipartisan, by the way. There are Republicans pushing for this as well. And I had a couple listeners say why it's a wonderful, great thing, it's overdue, and a couple others saying it's a horrible, terrible thing. It has to do with people who are, as I understand, and you'll give us the details, as I understand, primarily government workers who don't necessarily put, they don't fund their Social Security. They don't have Social Security taxes taken out, and then at some point they do, but it's less than one might expect to be fully funded. Explain this, the WEP, and there's another one too.
Yeah, the GPO, or the government pension offset. So
yeah.
What this was originally designed to do, and it was about 40 years ago, it was designed to basically trim or prevent beneficiaries of government pension programs in which they did not pay their Social Security taxes, as well as being able to double dip into a retirement fund. So this affects those who were public sector employees who did not pay into Social Security, but they did work enough and pay into Social Security for long enough to still qualify for Social Security. So in order to qualify for Social Security, you do need 40 credits, which is 40 quarters of what they call substantial earnings in the Social Security. So that's 10 years.
Yeah.
You still had to work for 10 years in the non-public sector in order to qualify for Social Security.
And this only applies to people who did indeed contribute to Social Security for 10 years?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. So I can see that. That would be unfair. I think that would be unfair then if you put in Social Security for 10 years and didn't get anything back. But as I understand, and you just tell me if I'm wrong, they got partial Social Security payments. They didn't get the full amount had they worked, say, like for 20 years or so in the private sector. Is that information correct or not?
Correct. So what happens is, if you have had under 30 years of what they call substantial earnings into Social Security, then your benefit was reduced by that windfall, the windfall elimination provision. Now, it wasn't depending on numbers in your opinions, it wasn't a massive deduction. It wasn't like 75% of it. It was going to be much less than that, but that was still going to be reduced by that windfall. But they just eliminated that, so they're going to expect the full payment.
Okay, so what are the averages? Do you have any idea, or do you not know that it was reduced by, 10, 15, 20, 30%? Or was that on a case-by-case basis? How might that have worked? Yeah,
so there's actually a chart. It's on the Social Security website. But if you have over 30 years of substantial earnings into Social Security, then your benefit was not reduced at all. If it was between 20 and 30, then it was reduced for every year. And then if you had less than 20, you had the maximum reduction. I don't have that exact number because that changes throughout the years, but I believe it was in the $400 to $500 range.
Well, let me take a look here. I mean, I had a lot of off-the-books jobs when I was a teenager. We all did that, off the books, right? Just some guy hires you to paint or trim hedges, things like that. You get paid and whatever you work out, blah, 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 blah. But, I've been putting the Social Security since I was, about 16 years old. And then I had part-time jobs in which I had to put in Social Security as well, because they're a substantive. So let's see. I've got 5,723 hours. I guess I qualify, something like that. Yeah, and if you try to calculate this thing, I don't know how the heck you do that, except you take a look at what the IRS has on record for you, and whatever their record is, or is it the Social Security office that actually has?
No, they work together on that.
Yeah.
But that's the windfall. That's how your own personal benefit was reduced. That's not going to happen going forward. And then there's also that government pension offset. Now, that applies to spouses and any widows or surviving spouses, widows, widowers. That basically reduces any survivor benefits that you would receive from Social Security from your deceased or your spouse by 2/3 of that public pension. So a lot of times, just going over through the years, I actually saw a lot of people that were not receiving any survivor benefits from the deceased spouse because their pension from the public sector was so large. Now, that said, they're going to do away with that as well. The average recipient that was affected by the windfall elimination provision of the WEP, the average individual is supposed to receive about $360 more
than they were.
Month.
Now,
yeah, and then the spouse is an average increase of about $700, and widowers I'm seeing about it's almost $1,200. So it's actually a big increase.
Okay, yeah, it is, and that's pretty substantial. And I know that it was a matter of fairness. So, I mean, what are you reading from other analysts? Are they saying this is a matter of fairness? Was it political, and is it something that should have been done differently, or is it spot on and this should have been done? What are you reading from other, like, say, financial planning and expert columnists?
Yeah, I mean, they put this in place for a reason because they didn't want people paying the minimum, getting their 40 credits and then getting a full Social Security benefit, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So they put it in here for a reason. It will help a lot of people, but, I mean, obviously there's concerns. It needs to be paid for, right? I mean, we've talked about, how it's been mentioned or proposed that, limiting taxes on all Social Security benefits. Well, that would probably have an impact on the solvency of the program. And what they're saying here, based on an article that I'm reading, that by eliminating these provisions, the windfall and the government pension offset, it should shorten the time period for the program's insolvency by about 6 months. So it's expected to be exhausted November 2033, which means payments would be reduced by 20%. But that's going to be pushed up further into 2033. So,
actually, I saw it's 2035. So now they're reducing it to 2033, and in 2035, I was reading that retirees will only get 83% of their full benefits if Congress doesn't do something to fix this thing. So
it depends on the report. But here's the thing, and we talked about this before. I mean, they know that it needs to be resolved.
Yeah.
Right. I don't think this is going to help that, but at the same time, they know it's bigger than this. It's bigger than these provisions. They need to get it fixed, and in their eyes, I guess 8 years is 8 or 9 years is a long time, but they know that this needs to get fixed. So,
well, look, Andrew.
Opinion, I don't think you really want my opinion on this.
Well, no, I do want to. I'd love to get your take on it because you have an opinion and you work with this every day, and you see how this affects everyday people when you're working with clients and you're talking with new people all the time, and you find out their situation. And I know how you guys work, and I love the way you guys work. That's why I've been a client of Dan White's for I don't know, a dozen years or more, and I like all you guys. You're all very professional, you and your buddy Dan there, also Dan Simon there at the Middletown office. But Andrew, because
this might hurt some feelings. I'm not a huge fan of the WEP, the elimination provision, and getting rid of that.
Okay,
that was in there for a good reason. However, especially for widows and widowers, those people, if they didn't get a survivor benefit from Social Security because their public sector pension was too large, I don't think that's right. So I'm actually a fan of that. So the whole thing together, remains to be seen. What happens and how it's going to impact everything. But I'm not totally opposed to the whole thing.
That makes sense. I mean, you have a pragmatic opinion about that. I don't see anything controversial about that at all. So Social Security, I mean, something has to be done, and we know what they usually do. They increase the taxable income limit. So right now it's what, 185,000 or something. I don't know. Maybe you do. But whatever that is, and they say, okay, after that certain amount of income, they don't tax you. Well, you're going to have to increase that. You're going to have to, increase the age at which people can claim full retirement. You can tax people even more while they're working, and those are usually the ways that they deal with this thing. So, I don't know, is there any other thing that, I know. I mean, what you could do is you could wind down the Social Security program, make sure everybody who is, let's say, over the age of 45 gets some piece of this, and then you take the Galveston plan, which has been working for people very well for decades. They get a lot more money out of that retirement plan than Social Security. And before the federal government ended that was allowed for municipalities and states around the country, if they wanted to have their own retirement plan that's like Social Security but different. So those monies are actually invested into very highly regulated mutual funds, in essence. And those people have 2, 3, sometimes 4 times more money than the rest of us do on Social Security. But you have to be in a municipality that allows that. Now, that's why it's called a Galveston plan. I remember reading policies on the Libertarian Party, and they are in favor of something like that, which would wean us from the Social Security, which is a Ponzi scheme, and bring people into a better plan that can work for them. But I don't think there's any political juice to make that happen. So aside from that, Andrew, I mean, what else can the federal government do?
It's a very good question. They're going to need to raise revenue. I mean, you'd mentioned all the things that everyone talks about.
Yeah.
At some point, I think what may happen. Again, I don't know if this is going to happen, but it might actually just not pay from the Social Security trust fund. It would pay from just the general tax fund, but we'll see.
Well, that's another thing too, because if Trump is successful in getting Congress to eliminate taxes on Social Security benefit income, then they lose, I don't even know how substantial it is, but they lose what I'm told is a fairly substantial percentage of revenue to try to feed the beast again, Right. So,
yeah,
I don't know. I mean, I'm glad that you guys are keeping track on it, and I know that when you work with people on an individual basis, you incorporate all of these aspects as well, and that's a great thing. Thank you.
Yeah, and again, I mean, it's one of those things where you manage what you can control, and when it comes to Social Security, we know at least what your stated benefits are, or what they're going to be, and we work with those. And if you want to plan for any future adjustments, if these issues do occur in 2033 or later, but you deal with what you can control and you make the most of it. But it's very important to understand that for most people, the Social Security is going to be, if not one of your largest sources of income in retirement. So it's important to make sure you're educated, you're doing what's best for yourself, and structuring out a secure retirement.
Oh yeah, yeah, and then everybody who's on Social Security can say, "Thank you, Andrew, for kicking into my retirement program. Thank you very much. I'm enjoying using your money." Because that's pretty much the way it works, All right, Sunday morning at 7. Everybody say thank you, Andrew, if you're retired and taking Social Security. And by the way, I'm going to thank you because, and this is a recent stupid joke. I don't have a New Year's resolution, but I am on Medicare Part B this year. So I want to thank you, Andrew, for chipping in and helping pay for my major medical insurance.
You're welcome.
Thanks for the money, Andrew. Oh, my God.
Sunday morning show, Dave is going to be doing kind of a recap of 2024, what went well and what went wrong.
All right, so that's Dan White on the money, Sunday mornings, 7 a.m. Get yourself a cup of coffee. It's on 101.7 FM, 1150 a.m., and, of course, streaming to all your devices and all that. Actually, I wrote that down and I forgot how they actually say it on the promos. But you know where to get WDEL. All right, thanks so much. And if you want to talk to Andrew, he's a great guy, smart guy. 888 Let's see. I'm doing this memory. 690-8820? Is that right? What's your number there in Middletown, Andrew? Did I lose you?
You have an 800 number.
Yeah. I said 888-690-8820.
The number you gave was right.
Yeah,
that was right.
I thought so. It's like this is so funny because people ask, "What's your phone number?" I don't know. I don't know my phone number. Why? Because it's right there on the phone, and I don't ever call it. So I don't know. 888-690-8820. Dan White and Associates. As for Andrew, he's a great guy. You're going to enjoy working with him. Thanks, Andrew. Have a great time.
Thank you, Rick.
All right. Bye-bye.